Hi everyone, hope your first week went well. I can't believe we're on week 2 already. Seems like we just started. Uh, I know that, well, actually, Marco, I guess you weren't with me last term, but I know that our other two students were with me last term, so everyone is probably pretty much used to this. As you probably noticed in our classroom, we have two discussion boards each week. So be aware of that. It's just one thing I wanted to point out. As we get rolling, you'll notice that there aren't quite as many writing assignments as you usually get from me, but we do have a few more discussion boards to kind of make up for that. I've not taught this class before, so at this point I've left it as it was from the prior instructor. I tend to do that with the first time I teach a class after I've gotten it from someone previous. At this point, there are a couple discussion boards, I think almost every week. So just keep your eye out for that. In the past week, there was a quiz. I think just 5 questions. I have a couple questions I'll go over from that. Just as a brief reminder, I will be doing one of these videos each week at the beginning of the week. Typically Monday, sometimes Tuesday if it's a crazy Monday for meetings or something like that. I don't get the or travel if I don't get the video done. It may be up on Tuesday, and it'll typically just be a summary of some concepts from the prior week. I will go over any quiz questions that were particularly problematic, and sometimes if there's something important in the next week that I feel I need to go over, I'll add that, or just any particularly pertinent info that I'll add for the upcoming week. So this previous week obviously was kind of just an intro to what is upcoming. We're talking about economics. So one thing that if you've never taken economics before, I think probably most folks did maybe back in high school. But if you haven't taken basic econ class, or I think everyone should have taken, if you've gone through the entire program at RMU, you would have taken a basic econ class here. But if you transferred in credits from another school and you haven't taken that econ class in a while, etc., there was a link in the classroom on basics, econ basics. It's worthwhile to go through that. This is kind of a next level econ class, so we're making the assumption that you have that base knowledge in this class. When we're doing papers, looking at discussions, those types of things, the assumption is that you have that base knowledge, and I'll be looking for you to have that, obviously, when we're talking about um, these higher level concepts. We did talk a little bit in the discussion boards, and I will obviously take into account the fact that there are only 3 students in the class. I apologize that it's such a small class. We can only do with what we have. Normally we wouldn't run a class with 3. But I know at least one of you needs this class to graduate, so we did decide to go forward and just run the class with the 3 students that we have. But I'll take that into account when doing the grading for discussions and whatnot. I know it's hard to do discussions with such a small group, but I do please encourage you to get in to the discussions. Make sure you're posting on time. Get in and post your initial posts by Wednesday, and if you can go in, make sure you're doing your 3 posts throughout the week. Don't wait and do them on Sunday. It's hard to do that. I try not to post very much. I don't want to take. I like to go in and generate discussion, but I also don't want to come in and say something that someone else was going to say, or take away the ability of someone to share a thought perhaps that someone else would say. So I will go in and try and do some posting as well to try and generate some discussion, because we have some interesting topics to look at throughout this term, and if I can help to generate some discussion in the boards, I will do that. So this past week we talked a little bit about There was the Gruber lecture, and what you heard in his lecture, and then also from that what could be something that you wanted to hear, and the discussion was good. There were some answers coming out one from the other, and that was good. I appreciated that. And then also the other discussion was on behavioral economics. And keep in mind, behavioral economics in healthcare can be very important because behavioral economics generally is just really how we take those that ability to analyze economic principles and take kind of the human behavior and apply it. So that whole psychological analysis piece, and apply that to economics. And when you think about how we behave, just even say something, I think even in the textbook it talks about things like codependence and the need to use drugs, those type of addictive principles, or the overutilization of care, things like that, where we find problems in healthcare that we need to deal with. A lot of those types of issues, by looking at behavioral economics, perhaps we can try and find a solution, or at least we can determine the problem, and it can help us to try and dig in and find a solution from an economic standpoint, and also perhaps by using the psychological side of the coin, it can help us to find a solution on that side as well, especially when we're talking about issues like substance abuse, addictive personality issues, mental health issues, care on that side of the coin, and then also overutilization issues. How can we fix those problems? Are there ways that we can counsel, not necessarily psychological counseling, but are there ways that we can counsel physicians to not overutilize? Are there ways that we can counsel patients to not overutilize care, etc.? So lots of ways that we can use behavioral economics to improve the system overall. So neat ways to apply that concept. So let me click back to our classroom here. And then we also had our paper due this week, which was the first of our writing assignments. It was fairly short, 2 to 3 pages, but there will not, as you'll see, those of you that are used to working with me, you're used to having a writing assignment every week. This class is a little bit lighter. If you look at the syllabus, you'll see that there isn't one every week. I think there's 4, maybe 3 throughout the term. So it's a little bit lighter. There's also, keep in mind, in this class, and I'm not sure if you're taking another class this term, the final project for this class is in week 8 as opposed to week 7. I would normally move it to week 7, but because there's only 3 of you, I did keep it in week 8. So keep that in mind as you're moving forward. You're welcome to work on it in week 8 and submit it then if you'd rather get it done if you have other things, but it is due in week 7 instead of week 8. Or it is due in week 8 instead of week 7, which is unusual. Typically, final projects in our courses are due in week 7, just due to the nature of when grades are due, because they're usually due 2 days after the end of the term. Okay, so I do want to go over a couple of the quiz questions. And talk about that a little bit. So the first quiz question, which of the following can be used to reduce moral hazard? So moral hazard is a situation that occurs when you have, if a patient has health insurance, and in talking about overutilization of services, if a patient has health insurance, obviously their out-of-pocket cost is going to be less. So if you have health insurance, your out-of-pocket cost is less than it would be if you had no health insurance. And then what this usually causes is an increase in the quantity of services that they demand. So increased quantity of services due to that lower out-of-pocket cost, and that's what's called moral hazard. referred to as moral hazard. So what this question had to do with is which of the following can be used to reduce that moral hazard. So the correct answer was monitor utilization and disallow services with marginal value, which makes good sense. Monitor utilization, which is managed care. It's what we do to monitor utilization, and then disallow those services that have marginal value. So if there's not much value to a service, then disallow those services. There were two answers that folks had chosen. I just want to address them. The first one was increase the available supply of healthcare resources. We wouldn't want to do that. That would actually just exacerbate the problem. Typically, to decrease moral hazard, reduce moral hazard, they actually say to limit the supply of healthcare resources. Now, I don't know that we would want to do that generally, but for purposes of reducing moral hazard, by limiting the supply of healthcare resources, you limit the access to healthcare resources, and therefore you would limit the ability for folks to access them, and therefore their overutilization would decrease. The other answer, decrease the consumer's share of the cost of the service. That is also not correct, because then that would encourage them to go out and use more services. So actually what you would want to do is increase the consumer's share, put it more back in their lap to say, hey, if you want to go out and use services, you're going to pay more. That is actually the concept behind consumer-driven health plans or high-deductible health plans. It's very consumer-driven. You want to use all of these services. Okay, you're going to pay up front, and perhaps you have a health savings plan to help you along the way, but puts it back in the consumer's lap. They need to make the decision, is this the care I really need or not? So it removes that moral hazard. It no longer exists. So the correct answer to reduce moral hazard is to monitor utilization and then disallow services that don't really have any actual value, that have marginal value. So that was our correct answer there. The next question, which of the following is an example of a financial externality? So the correct answer was a non-smoker paying for a smoker's cancer treatment. So typically when you're talking about this financial externality, this is going to be a situation where you have insurance where perhaps there's a risk pool, and everyone is kind of thrown into that risk pool. And so if I have insurance, another person has insurance who's a very high cost, it's going to bring everyone to the center, and so that my premium and their premium will be the same, typically due to just the nature of the way premiums are set, because we're in the same risk pool. It's going to bring us to the center, and so my premium, my now higher premium, even though maybe I'm more well than the person that is having the cancer treatment, my now higher premium is paying for their cancer treatment, even though their premium is lower than the care that they're receiving. So this is how it's known as a financial externality. Now, what government policy really impacts this now, because number one, you can't turn people away. Insurers can't turn people away due to pre-existing conditions, and they also can't. For example, a group health plan isn't going to pool people by risk. So they're not going to say, okay, you pay more because you have this condition, and you pay more because you're older, and you pay less because you're younger. Everyone pays the same, and they don't ask those questions when you come onto a group health plan. There isn't pooling based on risk. Everyone pays the same. What happens in the end is that the entire pool of folks that are in those plans, it may adjust the premiums in the long run. But one thing I do want to mention about that is, for example, let's just say smokers versus non-smokers, since this is the question. Let's say you go to work for an employer. They may have a wellness plan that says, okay, if you prove that you are a non-smoker, maybe you have to subject yourself to some wellness screening of some sort, and you prove that you're a non-smoker, you may get a discount from your premiums. You may get $200 back. So there are still times when you can get discounts for being more healthy via wellness related to your cholesterol, non-smoking, getting out and walking, those types of things, being well. So there are still these financial externalities, both in a positive and a negative standpoint, be it perhaps you're in some type of a health plan that really does still pool based on risk, or maybe you're involved in some kind of a wellness program where you can have some positive benefit based on positive health behaviors. So there are some opportunities on both sides. Okay, so that's what I have this week. This upcoming week, let me click in here. Looks like we are talking a bit, some more about moral hazard, but getting into adverse selection, talking a little bit about the individual mandate and the removal of that, and then talking about different types of services and how they can be substitute or complement for each other, etc. So should be a good week. Keep in mind that we do have those 2 discussion boards. There is no written assignment this week, just the 2 discussion boards, the quiz, and then obviously this Edpuzzle that you'll see. So any questions, please let me know. I will be out of the office tomorrow, which is Tuesday, and Wednesday for the holiday, but I am available. I won't be, I'm going to Canada, so I'm not sure exactly what my cell coverage will be up there, but I will be on email and whatnot at night, so I'll be available for questions. And then I will be back in the office on Thursday. So have a great 4th of July. Stay cool. Put some sunscreen on if you're going to be outside. And I will talk to everybody in the discussion boards. Okay, thanks so much.